Today we are excited to sit down with someone doing really important work here in the East Midlands. We are joined by Mr. Mahroof, the Outreach Officer for Tell Mama UK. If you don't know, Tell Mama UK is a national confidential support service in the UK that helps people who have experienced and witnessed anti-Muslim hate and Islamophobia. From tackling online abuse to helping victims in their hardest moments, they've been doing life-changing work. Mr. Mahroof is going to walk us through what that really looks like and why it matters, especially for young people. We are so glad to have you here with us today, Mr. Mahroof, and thanks so much for being here today. Before we dive into your work at Tell Mama, we would love to learn a bit more about yourself and your journey. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what led you into this work of advocacy and outreach?
Right, a bit about myself. As you said, my name is Mahroof Hussain. I grew up in Derby, went to local school, and then went to university in Middlesex to study engineering. After I graduated, the jobs market was difficult, and I decided to go into local government. So I worked for local government, worked in local government for about 26 years, holding various positions.
Right, thank you for that. And so coming down to what you do now at Tell
Yes.
Mama, and specifically on hate crime, is there a personal experience that inspired you, or is there a moment as part of your community engagement that inspired you to take up this?
Actually, it's interesting because I took redundancy from my work and I was looking for various positions when the council cabinet members that I used to work with, one of the council cabinet members invited me back into the council and introduced me to Tell Mama. So up till then, I hadn't really thought about working for Tell Mama. And interestingly, in one of my roles working within the community, I held various positions within the community. I worked, I volunteered in various community settings. I was on the committees of Pakistan Centre, of the mosque, of my local cricket club, and also of a relatively large community organisation called JED. And interestingly, we had actually invited somebody to talk about hate crime. But at the time, I didn't really think much of it until when the cabinet member invited me, introduced me to Tell Mama. And then I was invited by Tell Mama to give an interview. And I thought this is a good opportunity for me to find out more about Tell Mama, as well as tell them a bit about what my skills and experiences are. And that's how I got involved. So up till the cabinet member inviting me, to be honest, I hadn't even thought about going into this field at all.
But could you now tell us a bit more about the organization Tell Mama? What do you do? Is Tell Mama a national organization?
Yes, Tell Mama is a national victim support organisation, a victim support service. So what we do is we monitor and measure anti-Muslim hatred across the UK. So whether it's happening here in Nottingham, or whether it's happening in Derby or London or wherever. So people report cases to us and we record and monitor them. We also measure the hatred itself across the UK, but more importantly, we actually provide a support service to the victims, because that's what they really need. When people report into us, yes, some people just want to tell us what is happening, but more often, people actually want and need support.
Yeah.
So we provide a comprehensive, tailor-made support to the victims. This could range from very minor emotional support service to more comprehensive professional counselling. So we provide a whole range of support service. We also provide advocacy, and in fact there are a number of cases where we are currently acting as advocates, supporting people with their cases, whether it's for a lady who's got a case against a local authority in the south to try to get more hours for her disabled child, or something else. So we provide that advocacy role as well. And we also try to raise awareness, because people tend to feel, and I feel the more I talk to people, they more or less think it's okay, it's normal. So they're being abused, they feel or they experience hatred, but they think that is normal. So they don't really do anything about it. And what we want them to do is to report that, because we want to build up that intelligence to know what is happening within the community, and then we can help them as well.
Thank you. And because you've kind of alluded to this in terms of the kind of incidents, I know because anti-Muslim hate will cut across different social spheres, from education to healthcare, access to employment, jobs, and anything, even inclusion and exclusion as well. So what kind of incidents do you think are more prominent, the sort of incidents that people are reporting to you, and how do you respond to specific incidents?
The types of incidences range. They're all sorts, all types. In fact, over the years, now we've been in existence for about 12, 13 years, we found that it just varies. It can be very low level, somebody shouting abuse, somebody who's walking down the street, to somebody getting hit in the face. In fact, I'll give you an example where I was doing an outreach, and one of my main role is to deliver outreach sessions to the community. And I was doing an outreach session with one of the groups where a lady came up to me and said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yes, of course. Sit down." She said, "I was standing at a bus stop and wanting to go home on a Sunday afternoon where somebody came up to me and punched me in the face." And she said, "I didn't know what to do." I started crying. I really couldn't understand why. There was somebody else standing next to her at the same bus stop. He tried to intervene. He got pushed away, and that person ran away. And she says she cannot understand why. The only thing that she can think of is she was wearing a head covering, hijab.
Yeah.
But other than that, she's got blue eyes and she's got very fair features. So she looks like a European, except I think she is of Syrian origin.
Yeah.
So if she didn't wear the head covering, she would be just like a normal white British woman. But because she was wearing a head covering, she stood out, and she cannot understand why she got hit in the face. So she's reported to the police, but there was no CCTV and they didn't manage to catch the perpetrator. So we were trying to support her and reassure her. And what she said was that following that incident, she was so afraid not only about herself, but her children. So she often rang them at school, very worried about them in terms of where are you, what time are you coming home? And if they were slightly late than normal, then she would be very, very worried. So that's just a typical example. Lately, what we're finding within the last 6 months or so, we've noticed a lot of incidents against mosques. A lot of mosques have been either directly physically attacked or they've had graffiti rubbed onto them outside. In fact, there are about 6 mosques and a Muslim school in London, East London, they had graffiti sprayed on them in the early January. There have been mosques that have been damaged. In fact, there's a mosque in, I think in Scotland, I can't remember, I think it's Aberdeen, where somebody smashed the windows. There's another mosque in, I can't remember the place now, sorry, another mosque in Blackburn.
Yeah.
There's a mosque in Blackburn where somebody threw a rock through the window and then set it alight. And this was 1 o'clock in the morning. Fortunately, they managed to put the flames out, so it didn't actually to burn, but that's happening. Another mosque in Sheffield where somebody first threw a paint, somebody let rats out, and that person has been in court. Caught. So there have been numerous incidents. So lately there have been a lot of incidents surrounding mosques, and they seem to be being targeted quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think that story is very relatable, even locally in Nottingham. We're aware of some certain mosques having MTB accounts been placed outside of the main entrance door. So all of that will constitute some sort of a hate, anti-Muslim hate, hatred of some sort. Yeah, for the example you've given there for that young lady who was punched in the face at the bus stop, sadly, there will be others out there who have experience or who would probably be victims of certain such mindless attacks. But could you take us through the process? How do they contact Tell Mama, and what is that? How does that process look like?
Yeah, sure. What we do is obviously we're trying to raise awareness about anti-Muslim hatred. So we've got our WhatsApp the information, we've got telephones, we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter. So people can use effectively any medium that really they feel comfortable with. So they can directly ring our offices and talk to our staff, or they can email information onto us and use on our website. And often what people tend to do is they actually either do it through Twitter, or they send a WhatsApp message, or they might send an email to us. So when somebody sends that email, one of our case officers then contacts the victim, obviously trying to get a lot more information about them to verify the actual what happened and where it happened and what the nature of it is. And then following on from that, we then provide support, and depending on the nature of the support they might need, it varies. Another example that I might give you where somebody didn't contact us, but I found out through newspaper. A lady was traveling on a bus to drop her schools off every morning. And unfortunately for her, she used to get a lot of abuse from a gentleman who was on the same bus. On one occasion, another lady who used to work for Derbyshire County Council, she stood up and said, "How dare you? We're not like this in Alveston in Derby. You should not be calling her these names. Stop this." And she then went to the school that lady used to drop her children off and then put it on social media. I picked it up from social media, contacted the school, and then through that, we managed to identify the lady and contacted the local police, and we managed to find the perpetrator. And it helped. And she said that wasn't the first occasion. It happens on a regular basis for her, mainly because she was wearing her niqab, so she had a face covering, but she was just going and dropping her children off. And so as a result of somebody putting this out onto the social media, I managed to pick it up, work with the school. We did an awareness raising within the whole school and also within that lady, and supported her as well. So where we identify something happening and where we can, we will take the initiative and approach them and try to support them. But mostly people contact us. They sometimes all they want is to note that this incident has happened. But more often than not, I find that people don't tell us. In fact, I know of another occasion where a couple of ladies who used to worked at a local school were walking through the park, and they had a lot of abuse shouted at them. They didn't tell anybody. They didn't call us. They told their friends. I tried to get in touch with them. They didn't want to know, but they wouldn't tell us. But they told their friends and colleagues, and that's how we know that had happened. So where we know it has happened, we will obviously try to work with the individual. We will not share their details. That's the other important thing. The service we provide is totally confidential. We will not divulge the information even to the police without the victim's express consent. If they do not want us to share that information, we will not give it to anybody. And there have been many, many incidents where police want more details, and because the victim does not want to share that information, we've said no. And we can't do that, because I think it is very, very important that we maintain the confidence of the victims. So we do not share that information without express consent. Where we think that actually helps the case, we will encourage them to contact the police, or we will go with them to the police. In fact, there are 2 occasions where I've actually gone with the victim to the police station to report an incident. And that person reached out to us and says, look, they actually do want somebody to accompany them. And that was effectively like our advocacy. We were saying we're quite happy. They did most of the talking, to be fair, because they were fairly fluent, but they needed that somebody there to help give them that confidence. So we've done that.
So you're there for them throughout the whole journey.
Yes.
And then often victims are kind of worried about the repercussions of reporting an incident, what happened in the aftermath, if they haven't got that support all throughout the journey of what that might bring along for them, and the confidentiality that you've mentioned is really critical for them. And I've been to your website as well. As you mentioned, there's lots of information and ways to contact Tell Mama, so anyone who needs your service should be able to reach out to you in many different ways. Thank you. So in terms of the local area in East Midlands, because that is what you are covering, so you're based in Derby.
Yes.
And so what about, do you have any data in terms of the specific incidents, or is this on demographics or ethnicities? Do you have anything in terms of a breakdown of who potentially are mainly targets for such hate?
We used to get information where women were more at a greater risk.
Yes.
So we used to capture that statistics, and about around about 57%, nearly 60% of the victims used to be women. But lately, over the last few years, what we found is men are equally at risk as well. I think the whole following on from, I would say, when we had the coronavirus, when people were locked in the home, for some reason after that, the nature of hate crime has changed to some extent. Because when people were locked in the home prior to that, we used to get a lot of reports for people experiencing hate on the street, in public places, on buses, on tubes. And we're still getting that.
Yeah.
But during that lockdown period, we received a lot of hate crime from neighbours. So where people weren't able to go out, there was an increase in neighbourly disputes based on race, religion, and also a lot more online. And following on from that, what we're now finding is that there isn't that huge difference in between men and women. In terms of the perpetrator age range, we used to manage, and I'm not 100% accurate because I've not looked at it recently, but it was mostly young men that are the perpetrators against women.
Right.
But now I think that the nature is changed. And in fact, if you look at what happened last year in terms of the community riots, the age range has changed as well. And that's across the UK. So it's not specifically just for Nottingham or the East Midlands. But I also cover other areas as well. So yes, I do cover East Midlands, but I also cover the London area and the South. And we're finding that where there is a large Muslim community, then the numbers of hate crime goes up, purely because of numbers, I would say. So within the East Midlands, Nottingham is sizable Muslim community, so there is a sizable hate crime within Nottingham, but also in Leicester and to some extent in Derby as well.
Yeah, and you're right, and the nature of these, the opportunities that people will have to actually bring this hatred they have for Muslims is actually changing because of the social media as well. They've got other means of platforms that they could utilize. So not just attacking people in person, but they can do it online as well. And that is maybe a new trend that Tell Mama is aware as well. And how do you monitor the platforms, or do you don't have?
No, we do. What we do is when we identify, we encourage people to report into us, and where we get the reports, we will monitor it, we measure, and we reach out to these social platforms. And where we think that the information they put out is inaccurate, is wrong, we will try to get that down. So going back to that example of coronavirus, I recall an incident where somebody, in fact, it was one of the local newspapers, and I won't mention which one it was, they took a photograph of people sitting at Jummah prayers. And they took a picture at the side. And they effectively, I think the headline was, look at these Muslims, they're not social distancing, they're actually spreading coronavirus, and they're sitting very close together. Fortunately for that mosque, they had a camera on near the roof, and they captured the same image around about the same time, and people were social distancing. So where people were sitting in rows, they were actually 2 meters apart in the front and behind them. And they were able to present that information to us, and we debunked it. And then there was a minor apology in the newspaper. Basically, they took it down. So where we are notified of incidents, or where we come across, we will work with social platforms, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, and we will try to get that corrected. In fact, we do that on a regular basis.
So in terms of specific impact, or maybe that this might bring some into mind and a particular incident or a person, is there anything that you could recall that personally or your intervention has made a difference in that person's life?
There are many. In fact, I was talking to my boss, my director, and she said one of the ladies who spoke to her on the phone, because one of the works that we now are doing and doing a lot more of is professional counselling. So she said one of the ladies who was a victim of a hate crime reached out to her whilst our director was in Paris, and she said she spent 3 hours talking to her on the phone. This lady was suicidal, and what she managed to do was talk her through it. And some months later, that lady came up to our director and thanked her, says, "You saved my life." And there are many instances like that. One of the examples that I will give, I wouldn't say it's more of an intervention, but that really sticks in my mind. As part of my outreach work, I go to various places, and I normally have a banner which about Tell Mama, and I have lots of information leaflets where we give information about anti-Muslim hatred. And I was doing a session at the Madani School in Leicester, and they do this annually. Every year, in November, they get their students, their teachers, parents together to share a whole range of information. And I was there a couple of years ago, and this lady came up to me, and I had all these leaflets, and I gave a card to this Asian lady, and I didn't think anything about it. And then last November, she came up to me and thanked me. And I said, "What do you mean?" I couldn't remember her, because you see lots of people. I said, "What for?" She said, "Last year, I took this card from you, and I put it in my pocket and forgot all about it. And then a couple of months ago, her daughter was traveling from Leicester to Nottingham, and she got into an incident. And she said, I put my hand in my pocket and your card came up. I rang the card and I received help." And honestly, that really, really made my day, because all I did was give her that little bit of information. She contacted me and says, "Thank you very much for all the support you've offered me." And that really, really chuffed me. I was really proud of that work. I mean, in fact, fairly recently, one of the works we do is we work with the asylum seekers, new arrivals, and we try to encourage them to report incidents, and we try to get them to contact us. And a couple of months ago, I was doing a session with the team that supports the asylum seekers, and they came up to me and thanked me for the support, the emotional support we provided to one of their service users, one of the asylum seekers who was attacked by a dog, and nobody was taking it seriously. And he said the person, our support case officer, support officer, was very supportive, very understanding, and he really found that helpful. So yeah, we occasionally get that. I mean, obviously, the people tend write direct to us, but occasionally we get this, and that makes my day. Really makes it all worthwhile.
It does, because it's about impacting people in real life, and you can see the impact on them, what it meant to them.
Yes.
Thank you. But if we look at the other side, which is the challenges now, what do you think is perhaps as part of your role in the outreach is mainly you describe as the hardest part of your job?
I'm fairly fortunate in a sense that I think the hardest part really is convincing people to report incidents, because more often than not, people have experienced it so much low level. Obviously, if it's something serious, people do tend to report the serious incidents if they have physically been assaulted or some of their property been damaged. But the low level, where they've been called names and bullied and what have you, often that goes unreported. And trying to encourage people to say, look, without that low level, because often it's the low level then progresses and gets quite nasty. So that is probably the hardest part. And then trying to engage the organizations, because they often think, oh, well, it's nothing much happens. Yeah, no, we're okay. Nobody's reported anything. Oh, yeah, one of our ladies, she was being called these, but we've spoken to her and it's fine. For some reason, they feel that there isn't a need. And to some extent, I can understand, because what you don't want to do is become a target for somebody. So if you put yourself out there, then you become a target and people then might attack you. But more often than not, it's the level of support that we can provide and the intelligence that we can build. Because if we know that a lady walking down on Carlton Road is experiencing hate or somebody shouting at her, she won't be the only one.
Yeah.
There will be others.
Well, that,
And
yeah.
what we want to know is what is the level of and the nature of that issue. So not only can we help that lady, but we can work with our partners. And we've got some really good relationship with the police where we share intelligence. So if we think something is happening in a particular street, we will work with them and try to get them to look into that, and so hopefully stop that happening. If, for example, something we feel that there's an area where the lighting is particularly poor and women are afraid and they feel nervous about it, we can work with the local authority to get that changed, even in a local park. And I know in my area where I live, the local park wasn't used very much by local people. And since the local authority put a lot of lighting in and made the park a little nicer and cleared the pathways, it's regularly being used by everybody in the community every morning. So that's what we can do, is if we can work with agencies to build the intelligence and try to address that from happening.
Right. Going back on that point that you've mentioned about people, it does appear the whole Muslim community have got that default position of maybe really growing that thick skin and trying to ignore certain comments along the way. And does that really raise the question, is anti-Muslim hate taken seriously, actually?
Yeah, I think it is. I think generally within, particularly the public sector, the local authorities, the police, the government, they are taking it seriously. In fact, the government is putting more resources into tackling anti-Muslim hatred. And so the level of funding they used to give to protecting religious places of worship, particularly mosques and Muslim schools, that's gone up quite significantly. They're encouraging people to apply for that funding, and the fund normally opens every year, and we'd encourage people to put their applications in, and what that does is helps them to strengthen their premises so that happens. So generally I think people are taking it seriously, but in terms of the level, I think the level of anti-Muslim hatred is also increasing. So what we've noticed is over the last 2 years, for example, the numbers of hate incidences and hate crimes reported to us, the reports we've received have gone up significantly. We used to receive, 12, 13, 1,400 incidents a year. 2 years ago, we received more than 4,000. Last year, 2024, we received more than 6,000 reports to us. So it's gone up quite significantly. I think partly because, yes, the nature of hate crime has, and the numbers has increased, but also I think people have now found that they can report to us in confidence, and we will support them, and we will help record them, so that those numbers have increased as well. So we're finding the nature has gone up and the numbers has increased significantly as well.
Yeah. Just to maybe buttress the point that you've made about because we had funding, the Nottingham Council of Mosques received some, they put in a joint funding. At some point we had security guards who received funding after the far right riots, and they were stationed at mosques to make sure to reassure the community that support is there. So that's something that the Muslim community actually appreciate, and it is good that you've raised that. But in terms of your role personally, have you felt you've been targeted by anyone for doing what you are doing for everybody or on behalf of everybody?
Personally, I've been very lucky, very fortunate that I've not really experienced anything directly myself. Our offices in the past have been attacked. So not only physically, but our websites have been targeted as well. So that has happened. We are constantly aware and we are reminded to be safe and remain safe. And so and remain vigilant. And that's something that we are always conscious of. In terms of personally, the only time I felt slightly apprehensive was following the community riots last year, where it started off with a mosque in Southport, and then it spread into other mosques. And then it wasn't just the mosques, it was anybody providing support services to asylum seekers. And then we received a list of places where the far right were going to march, and that was quite nervous. And it wasn't just because of me, but I was going to do a session at Leicester train station a couple of weeks later. And I got a message from the manager to say, look, we don't want that to happen because the risk is still there. So we postponed that and held the event much later. I know from our local Lidl store and Aldi store, which was in Normanton, they let the staff go home early that evening, where there was supposed to be a far right march. Fortunately, none of that happened. And also, the good thing was the whole community was galvanized. Everybody came out in counter protests. And we noticed that here in Nottingham, in Leicester, in Derby. And that actually helped because that brought the whole community together. So in terms of fear, apprehension, that was the only time that I felt slightly apprehensive because the nature was of the issues. Incidentally, I also spoke to people within Nottingham here about what was happening. And what was interesting to me was there were people who are very affluent, capable, and they were considering looking at this and says, what exit strategy do we have? If things get really bad, what do we do? So people have started thinking about this. They say, okay, we're okay, we've lived here 50, 60, 70 years, but what about our children and grandchildren? If this continues, are they going to be safe here? And that is something that I think people have started thinking about already.
Quite legitimately as well. So now if we turn to the young people, the future, because it is the niche, FYA, Fearless Youth Association, is very much heavily invested in. So, and I know you do a lot of work with schools as well as part of what you do. So if you, in your interactions with young people, what are some of the things they're telling you are their experiences of anti-Muslim hate, even at that young age?
I think when you are young, you don't necessarily understand whether it's because of your skin color or whether it's your religion. It often comes out as bullying, and depending on who you are and where you are, that's how it manifests itself. So the younger you are, I think in the primary school that I used to be a governor at primary school, and I used to chair primary school, and we used to have incidents of bullying. People don't really understand, children don't really understand why they're bullied. And I think by and large, there isn't that level of anti-Muslim hatred at primary school level. They need to be aware of their background and who they are. But as you grow older, then the nature and the type of bullying changes. So you might be bullied in school because of the way you look, the way you dress, the way you talk. And that is where young people then become slightly more conscious. Is it because who they are, where they've come from, or their background? Lately, the war between Israel and Palestine, that's got young people very emotional. And the consequence of that is that there are some children are being targeted and they can't express themselves, and that's how they feel that they're being targeted. And so our advice really is you need to speak to somebody in authority, speak to your teacher, speak to your parents, speak to an adult, speak to us. They can contact us confidentially, and we will help them and support them. But they need to speak to somebody if they experience any nature of bullying, because it's not nice to be bullied, regardless of who you are. It's not nice to be called names or be put in that situation where you feel very uncomfortable because of who you look like, or the way you dress, or where you talk, or what your religion might be. So our advice is to young people is to report that if it happens.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's related to the next question, really, which talks about young people's involvement in the job that you are doing now, really to raise awareness. But for them to actually join you and do this in their own way, because they're able to communicate in their own way, in a different way. So why do you think it is important, generally for the minority communities, to actually have a voice nationally on issues that matters to them?
I think it is very, very important. As a local government officer, I worked very closely with very senior councillors, and I also got involved in elections. And I recall a few years back, in one of the local elections, a councillor got elected where the turnout was only 17%. So that means 83% of people didn't turn out to vote.
Yeah.
And she got elected with 11%. So that means 89% of the people within that ward did not vote for her. And yet she was still representing them.
Yeah.
And this is actually very, very crucial.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have a say, we don't contribute, we don't get involved, people will be making those decisions
for us.
And the local authority can make lots of decisions. They can make decisions on I don't know, education, on what happens in your environment, what the investment is, on where the shops are, the youth service, a whole range of things. So if we are active, we're able to get our voice across to them. So my advice to young people, and my the reason, what I would say to young people is actually talk to people, have a say, tell them what you actually want, get more organized, and tell people in the manner that you feel most comfortable in. If you feel comfortable in, I don't know, on social media or in, I don't know, any other form, get involved. And that is how you will get your voice heard and the things that matter to you. You know, interestingly, the government is now looking at raising the age of voting to 16, or reduce the age to 16. That is really good, because I think that will give young people a voice.
Yeah, but of course that comes with huge responsibility for young people as well about choosing the type of leadership that so it's about getting actively engaged in the national affairs.
Actually, I think, to be honest, the young people of nowadays are a lot more aware than we were, because of what's happening in social media. They've got access to information that we never did. As we were talking just before this session, when I grew up, the television was effectively the main medium, but we didn't have very many channels. We only had a few. Whereas now, you've got hundreds of channels on television. You've got social media. You can access anything virtually any time. Internet.
Individual content creators having their own channels and having their own perspectives quite strong on certain things and pushing those agendas.
And that's what we need. We actually want young people to be aware and then get that voice across. Because in terms of anti-Muslim hatred, I'd love for young people to actually raise that awareness, to say, actually, if you are a victim, if you are a witness, so if you see something happening down the street that you are not comfortable with and you think that is wrong, our advice normally is intervene safely. And it is very important. Your safety comes first. But if you can't intervene, at least reassure the victim and then report that. Reporting is one of the most important tools, because that is the only way we will build up the intelligence in terms of what is happening, where it's happening, and then we can help that victim, but also do something about it as well.
Yeah. And so if you look at it recently in education, we know there's a lot of positive developments around inclusion and participation. But do you think schools are doing enough to try and encourage or support Muslim students in particular, and ensuring others actually respect the diversity and also make sure everyone is included within their campuses?
If I'm going to be honest, and brutally honest, I think schools aren't doing enough. I think part of the problem really is they are competing with each other. And what they want to do is compete with, I don't know, GCSEs and A-levels and whatever exams they have. So they want to do that. So they are very focused on their curriculum. So anything that outside, I feel they don't actually give that level of support that actually it needs. So my view would be that we need to do more with the schools, encourage the schools to be more aware of the diversity of the students' population that they are serving, and also the wider community. Because even if they have, I don't know, whatever the makeup of their school is, when these young people go into universities or go into the workforce, it's very diverse. So they need to be aware of and mindful of other cultures. And I think schools could do a lot more in terms of raising that level of awareness, what Muslims are, what they do, what their needs and aspirations are. And to be honest, the thing that really sticks with me is people are people. we all have the same aspiration, same needs, same wants. We all want the best for our family, for our children, and we all want to do well. And it doesn't matter whether you're white, you're brown, you're black, whether you're Muslim, you're Christian, you're Jewish, whoever you are, that's all that you want. And what we need to do is bring the communities together. And to some extent, we are trying to do that within the Muslim community, particularly during Ramadan, where we have iftars. And I've noticed over the last few years, a lot of cities are now doing iftars.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm involved in Derby County football team, and they've been holding iftars for the last couple of years.
Yes.
And that's gone down really well, because it's not just for the Muslim community, but for the wider community to come together, share a meal, learn about each other, talk to each other in a very relaxed environment. And I think that is helping.
Yeah, it is. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's lots of anti-Muslim hate and racism actually stemming from ignorance. And I think that really is the huge disease that we all have to fight against. And schools, I agree, can do more and should do more in that aspect. So if we turn to the immediate future for Tell Mama locally, are there any particular events or programs?
Well, one of the things that I want to share with you is that each year, right across the UK, we have National Hate Crime Awareness Week, and that happens every October. So during that October, there will be lots of events. There will be lots of events happening in Nottingham, in Derby, in Leicester, across the UK. And so I want people to be aware. That happens this year. Is going to be between, I think, 11th and the 18th of October. Look out for those events, promote them, get involved in them. And they could be something from very simple to people coming together to share a meal, to raise awareness, have a small, I don't know, it might even be a coffee club, or they might have a more formal event where there are presenters talking about their background and their cultures. So there could be a whole range of events. In fact, there's some people just do walks from A to B from different community centres just to raise awareness. So the communities might be from, I don't know, a Sikh community, a Hindu community, a Christian community, a mosque. So all you do is follow that and talk to people within those settings. So there'll be lots of events happening. Yeah. So what I would want young people to do is, one, be aware and to share that and raise awareness and talk to people about each other. So that's happening just this October.
All right. And so, for example, if we take the challenge to your viewers and listeners now, how could they get involved in this and to actually support your work? For example, how are you funded? Do people can make contributions to your work to facilitate your further outreach to even more victims of anti-Muslim hate crime?
That's a really good question, because only last Thursday, I was at a session in Ilford, Islamic Centre, and they've got senior citizens. They hold a luncheon club, and they invited me to come and do a session. And I did a session and spoke to them, and they talked to me about our funding. And what we said is that we used to get funding. We used to have a contract with the government. We've declined that. And so now we're totally independent. We're looking to generate funding directly ourselves, whether we go and put applications for projects, or we seek benefactors, and where people who feel that they support what we are doing, and so they can fund. And what this group of people said was, they said, we need to talk about this in more detail to the chairman. And then all of a sudden, one person took some money out and he says, why don't we just contribute? And so they started making contributions. So we raised £115. Well, I say we raised, they actually gave me that because they feel that the work that we're doing is very, very important. So in terms of our funding, people can make contributions to us directly onto our website. There is a process they can do that, or they can support us in kind, or they can volunteer for us. And we are trying to encourage and develop a volunteering program where we can get more people to spread the awareness of not only about the problems of racism, of hate crime, but also where people can get support and support them. So any manner that young people feel comfortable with, by all means, please reach out to us on our website, and somebody will get back to them, and then we will we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. I think that's really a useful reminder or a challenge to everyone out there, so that we should all do a bit more, because if this is something that we all care about, we should get involved. It shouldn't be the case of just leave one or few people to try and solve the problem for all of us. And so if you look back on the journey and the work that you're doing currently, of course, the community involvement that you were in and you continue to be in, because it's in the community space you're still in. What are some of the lessons that you've learned and you're happy to share?
I think one of the things that for me personally is I was very ignorant. I took people at face value. I didn't really look into it and look too deeply into the issues. Whereas I think young people are a lot more savvy now. They know what is happening, and I think that's very positive. I think at a younger level, I think the more they get involved, the better it is. I didn't really start getting involved until when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I wish I'd done it earlier. So the earlier you can get involved, you become more aware of your surroundings, about what opportunities are out there, but what also the pitfalls, so you can avoid those as you grow up and you move along in your career. So that's the thing that if I was going to look back, I think that's probably what I would do, is be more aware of my surroundings, of what people are saying, and hopefully take action. Because what we tend to do is put it off for tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes. We'll say, I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And all of a sudden, you think weeks have gone by and months have gone by, you still haven't done it. So that would be something that I would say that we can take back.
Right. So they say procrastination is the greatest thief of time. So yes. If you think about it today, just do it now.
Yes.
So one final question for you. If you could swap your jobs with anyone for just one day, be it real or fictional, who would it be and why?
That's a really interesting one. I've never really thought of this. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is I enjoy playing sports. In my younger days, I used to play a lot of badminton, and then I also played a lot of cricket. And in fact, if I was looking at it now, I'd probably be a cricketer for a day.
Would you be?
The issue is, who would I play for? And now that would be the thing. I think current England team is very exciting, to be honest. Being in that environment, going out there and experiencing. I mean, currently England are playing India. And if you go out in a test match for a day, all thousands of people watching you, wanting to perform, that would be something that I would really enjoy. Because I still play cricket. I play for Derbyshire Seniors. So we
keep going. You never know.
Well, you never know.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. That was really a powerful and a very, very passionate conversation. We thank you for your time, and to tell Mama for the honesty, the commitment, and your tireless work in standing against hate and supporting those who need it most. If this episode meant something to you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.